CNN's Natasha Bertrand cited an alleged White House source claiming that the Iranian nuclear sites were left intact. But Pete Hegseth addressed this earlier, claiming that this CNN claim undermines national security.
There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that, because of the hatred of this press corps, are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible. And folks in this room are privy to that information because of the proximity here in the Pentagon. It's an important responsibility. And time again, classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that?
For more, let's bring in Kyle Shideler. He's the Director for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism at the Center for Security Policy. So, Kyle, thanks for joining us again, because it's almost insane that we go through and we see all these, the leaks, and then people at the Pentagon have to come out and say, no, this isn't exactly what it's happening. It's indeed the exact opposite. So why are we dealing with all these leaks? What's the motivation behind just the story that we're seeing unfold right now?
Well, what I think you're hearing is the last shuddering gasp of the Ben Rhodes echo chamber that was built up to promote a foreign policy of dealing with Iran that said the military option didn't exist. This was the cornerstone of the Barack Obama interaction with Iran. They insisted that you had to do a deal, and the reason you had to do a deal was because there was no military option. Now, they were always lying about that. But so now we are seeing, this infrastructure that was built many, many years ago by the Obama administration of bureaucrats, supposed foreign policy experts, supposed national security experts in bed with their journalist buddies, leaking, a tired narrative that frankly never had any legs.
So, excuse me. How often do you see these sorts of operations? It seems like with intelligence gathering, there's so much out there, and you could leak something that is completely sure. You could find another report on the same subject that's completely unsure. You could find things that are low probability or low assuredness of being correct all over intel, and they get leaked to press agents who, for years now, have worked as kind of a secondary arm of the Democratic Party or a secondary arm of the deep state, including Natasha, who was key in the Hunter Biden laptop. She was key in some of the Russian disinformation stories and has been successful, very professionally successful with it. How often do you see this? And is it always one way, or is this a weapon that's used by all sides to kind of craft media narratives?
Well, Chris, you know that Washington is a leaky ship, one way or the other. That's how they do battle in Washington. But I think, especially when it comes to Iran, this is, as I said, an echo chamber. This is a pipeline. This is a machinery of leaks that has been built over several years that only goes in one direction. You can go all the way back to the 2003 National Intelligence Estimate that the intelligence community leaked against George Bush back then to argue that the Iranians didn't have a nuke program. So this is a long time in coming, and we saw the leak prior to the strike on Fordo, where they insisted that the bunker busters could not do the job, and now they are insisting that the bunker busters did not do the job. So you can see the narrative at play here, and they're just continuing to peddle this stuff. And I think it was well disrupted by General Kane when he said, "Look, we built these things for Fordo. We know exactly what these things can do. They were built for this specific structure, and we know we hit our target."
How do you
don't have to be a great intelligence analyst to understand what he's telling you there.
How do you get to the bottom of these sorts of things? Are these sorts of reports widely circulated? Are they the kind of things that are only held by 10 different people? Is an investigation even plausible in this sort of situation? I know you can't speak probably specifically to this one, but in the general realm of intelligence leaks to reporters.
Well, I can tell you what I would do to nip some of this in the bud, and President Trump has done some of it. which is take away the classifications that the top secrets clearances that some of these former officials have. Because what often happens is individuals inside the bureaucracy will leak to former officials who still have a clearance, and therefore they can technically see the material. And those former officials then leak to the press. And so what you'll see if you read carefully between the lines, you'll see usually references to former officials familiar with the material, or individuals familiar with the material. It doesn't actually say where those people were from. And that is part of what allows them to widely distribute these things, so that it becomes very difficult to figure out who the specific leaker is. There's work that can be done to hunt down these leakers. It's a serious counterintelligence problem for the United States that we have bureaucrats that do business this way, that we have current and former political appointees who do business this way.
So we see Pete Hegseth, he's making a big deal of this for a reason, right? They're trying to make sure that this doesn't happen again, that they will go through and kind of call you out by name, basically, if you're going to keep doing this. But is this going to work for the administration, or as long as Donald Trump or any other Republican is in office, is this something that we're just going to have to keep dealing with?
Well, obviously, Secretary Hegseth has already been rattled with a leak situation before. A number of DoD officials were moved out after a leak investigation, and then he had the unfortunate situation with the Signal chat. So, I think information security is certainly forefront in Secretary Hegseth's mind here, and it should be for the entire administration. They're not going to catch any breaks here. They need to continue rooting out the bureaucrats that are against the administration. Just some of the longtime hardened, people use the term deep state. These who they're referring to, these bureaucrats that have policy ambitions, but they're not in a policy job. They're supposed to be carrying out the will of the president, but they don't. And so rooting them out, dealing with the clearances held by former officials from the Biden administration would be another good move. I think you can make progress, but Washington is always going to be Washington. So
what are some of the tools that we as reporters, we get leaked reports, we get leaked analysis, we get to look at these sorts of things and have to try and figure out what the real story is. If you're the reporter, you're expected to read it, for example, and maybe this is a low confidence assessment. But how can the audience and people who, as we assume, will continue to hear these things in CNN and the New York Times and other famous outlets for deep state leakers, how do they guard against this? How should you look at these stories when they come out? Is it just a question of cui bono, or is there a broader way that people can understand these?
Yeah, well, when I train interns here at the center, one of the things I tell them first is whenever you're reading anything you see in the news, ask yourself, who wants me to believe this? And once you can figure out who wants you to believe it, then you can move on to, is it true? And so often we skip that first step, but it's very important, because the way that, groups like CNN play the game here, there was a real intelligence report. It really did say what they said that it said. They just left out some information that you needed to know, which was that it was a relatively low-level assessment in which they had low confidence, and that it did not include all of the intelligence that we later received over hours and days. So those are the kinds of things you need to ask yourself. Who wants me to know this? Why do they want me to know this? What aren't they telling me here? How sure are they? The world of intelligence is not a yes or no world. It's not a black and white world. It's a high level, high likelihood, low likelihood, low confidence, high confidence. It's shades of gray. So when you read something that says an intelligence report says absolutely X, you know that they're playing games with you.
Yeah, it seems like this is something that, they've done this since Russiagate. They've done this since the beginning. You just have to be careful over who's trying to tell you these things and why. And so many times we've been misled by reports, 9/11 Commission, all the way, or not the 9/11 Commission, but some of the WMD reports at the beginning all the way through, and the different analysis we've had to deal with. So thank you. That's an important lesson I'll take with me to my reporters.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time, Kyle. We'll catch you next time. Don't go anywhere. We're going to head back out to D.C. Bedford's here, but don't worry, we'll get Rachel Bovard in on the conversation right after this.